Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We thought we would bring you up to date as to where we are with the weather situation here. First of all, we are fortunate that we did not have a repeat of what happened last year. The weather patterns were very similar in many respects. Fortunately, the warm air moved a little further north this year than it did last year, and as a result, we are getting the rain as opposed to the ice and the snow that was present this time last year. With regard to our preparations, we were taking no chances in that regard. The DOT began applying a brine solution to the roadways, particularly the interstates around Metro Atlanta. They did that beginning yesterday with some 200,000 gallons of brine, and again today with the same amount of brine. The conditions that we are looking at for this evening and into tomorrow seem to be as follows: that the rain will probably stop somewhere around midnight, and there will be a very brief window between the time the precipitation stops and the time that the temperatures begin to plunge rather dramatically. During that period of time, the DOT will continue its road treatment operations. The danger, of course, is with moisture on our roadways and the temperature dropping is the fear of black ice. And that is the most significant threat that we see into the early morning hours and into the early part of tomorrow. In light of that, we are going to, for our state agencies, we're going to delay an opening until 10 o'clock for the Atlanta area. There may be parts of our state, especially in the north, where that will not have cleared sufficiently of the black ice at that time, and we are asking them to observe an 11 o'clock opening for state functions in those areas that may be subject to the black ice continuing. We will make these same recommendations to other departments of government at the lower levels, as well as to school superintendents in the affected areas. They, of course, will make their own judgments as to what they will do about when they will open. I have here with me our severe weather team, and they are prepared to give you more details about any specific area that you may have an interest in. But with that, let me stop and see what your questions might be.
Governor, I know it's always a fine line on making that call whether to close shop down here, especially in the Metro Atlanta area, but how delicate is that balance? Because we've got some folks asking, what about taxpayer dollars? Is this the waste of taxpayer dollars and that type of thing?
Well, it is a very fine line. In fact, had the weather conditions that we found prevalent in some parts of North Georgia today been in metropolitan Atlanta today, we would have had a more difficult situation, and I think everybody would have understood why we suggested that we close government down today. We did not shut the city down. We did not shut everything else down. We just did it for our state government agencies. It's always difficult, and I think if you want to put yourself in the position of a local school superintendent who has to make that call when the National Weather Service changes its predictions at 4:30 in the morning, it's a little bit late for school superintendents and even the state of Georgia to change the direction that we've set, because we have a lot of moving parts, and we have people that drive into our headquarters here in some of our offices here in metropolitan Atlanta, and they're driving from some of the northern areas of our state that are already currently affected by it. So it is a fine line. Some would say perhaps we erred on the side of caution, but I believe that that is appropriate under these circumstances.
You sound a little frustrated.
Oh, no. You never get mad at Mother Nature, do you?
Governor, obviously a much different outcome in Metro Atlanta compared to last year. This year, though, talk a little bit about what you did leading up to this point, as far as your command center, and you're really taking this serious this time around, too.
Well, we took it serious last year. It's just that we brought more of our forces to bear, and we got an earlier start on it. We had a little bit better warning this time in terms of being able to do that. Let me ask Jim Butterworth, who is now head of GEMA, if he would give us a very overview of exactly what took place, and the other fellows who are here had a very important role to play in that preparation. Jim?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Governor. To your question, we started really 72 hours ago when the indications from the forecasts were that there would be some adverse winter weather. We engaged with the members of the Emergency Operations Command. Those are Colonel McDonough, the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety, the Georgia Department of Transportation, Commissioner McMurray, as well as the head of the National Guard, and also the head of the Commissioner Williams, the head of the Department of Natural Resources. We all discussed with our meteorologist, who is as well is here, Will is here as well, and we had conversations. We had dialogue. What is the impact? What is the forecast? We looked at the facts as they were presented at the time, and then we moved forward with what the plan, as best we could tell from the changing dynamic. We moved forward with that plan. And we planned strike teams for the area around Atlanta and also all the way up to the Tennessee line on I-75. We monitored the road sensors and a number of other recommendations, 23 in total from the last 12 months from the Winter Weather Task Force that the governor engaged a while back. So those are some of the things, and I can go on at great length, but our State Operations Center is open right now. As many of you know in this room, you've been over there and have visited with us, and we appreciate that. The key part that we have learned over the last 12 months is communicate, communicate, communicate. And we've done that tremendously, both internally, but also externally, and we appreciate the partnership that all of you have shared to that end. Governor?
Director, can we talk about, I know that you're delaying the opening of state government right here, but what about your message? I know you don't like to tell schools what to do, but what is the message to local school superintendents? Today was an easier decision because of President's Day. Many of them were off, but what about tomorrow?
I would think they probably would follow similar recommendations as to what the state is doing. They don't want black ice on the roadways that buses are trying to traverse because that is exceptionally dangerous, as you know, for a busload of children to be hit by black ice on the roadway. We are told that the road temperatures are going to be above freezing, and that unlike what we had last year where we saw the above normal road temperatures melt the precipitation, which then turned to ice because the wind temperature was below freezing, we don't think we're going to have that same circumstance. One thing, the precipitation will be the rain that we are now seeing. Although I'm told there's not going to be a lot of wind. We had a lot of wind a day or two ago, but apparently we're not going to have that same amount of wind, which would help to dry out some of that moisture. So the precipitation is still going to be there, and the temperatures of the air will be below freezing. So therefore, that's where the black ice will come from. But the precipitation, the key is the precipitation is apparently going to stop, and there will not be any new ice or snow or rain to add to it.
Governor, a time like this, 911 is critically important. That's the lifeline for people who are stuck out in a storm like this or who need immediate help. Your own commission said 911 is broken in Georgia. What are you going to do to fix it?
Well, you know, 911 systems are run by local jurisdictions. We know that there have been some improvements being made with 911, but we have a lot of other resources for people to find out what is going to happen. 911 is usually an after-the-fact notification system. We want people to be aware of what is anticipated before the fact, and that's why many of you have apps, I think, that are very helpful to people who will consult those. We have websites for the state which people can consult, and we'll also give them information as to what the conditions are and what we anticipate the conditions might be.
Just a quick follow, Governor. Your commission recommended that there be a state agency that oversees 911. Are you in favor of that?
Well, I haven't made a decision on that. I think we have supervision now on 911 in terms of trying to coordinate activities. One of the difficulties in 911 is overlapping signals of cell phone operators where it's hard sometimes to identify where the call is coming from because they don't always coincide with the location of the individual who's making the call. Those are things that are legitimate concerns and things that I think the industry is also working with local jurisdictions to try to straighten that out.
Governor, if we can get back to more of today, maybe this is to Commissioner McMurray. Welcome your first event here. But can you talk about what DOT is doing, will be doing overnight in terms of the roadways here in Metro Atlanta? And have you had to maybe move any of your crews north? And if you could address that.
Okay, thanks. Yes, I'm Russell McMurray, Commissioner for Georgia DOT, and it's my first time to have this opportunity, but I'm very proud of what the staff of Georgia DOT has done in concert with GEMA, the Department of Public Safety, Department of Natural Resources, and the whole effort. What we've done thus far is actually on Sunday, we moved crews from our South Georgia districts up to Metro and had them at an all-hands-on-deck meeting at 7 p.m. Sunday night to be ready. Concurrently Sunday, though, as Governor mentioned, as we started application of over 200,000 gallons of brine to all the Metro interstates, including 75 all the way to Tennessee. And what I want to report to you now is to understand that the brine that we put down yesterday is still in effect. As the rain comes in, it actually causes that brine to work. It actually makes a salt solution so that when there is an onset of freezing precipitation or as the temperature dips, the air temperature dips, it reduces the freezing temperature, sort of like your rock salt in your ice cream maker. So we have a good solution down now on all the interstates around Metro Atlanta. In North, today we went back and added another 200,000 gallons up the interstates I-85 into South Carolina, up 400, up 575 and 515 into Blairsville. So we're trying to get all our freeways tops will have the first initial coating of brine. So tonight, as the governor mentioned, as the rain stops and the cold temperature comes in the morning hours, we will have all hands on deck in Metro Atlanta, basically bringing our two shifts. Instead of having two separate shifts, we're bringing those together to reapply brine to the outside lanes of the interstate. Not all lanes, because all lanes have been treated, but we want to have sort of a double application of those outside lanes with our brine, with our tankers, and then we'll use our spreaders with the gravel salt mix to treat overpasses and interchanges concurrently while that's going on, so that we will have all those key arteries open, and the gravel and the salt makes a friction, so it helps break up any glaze that happens when the temperature dips. So if there's not a brine treatment there, you've got something that actually breaks up that first bit of glaze. So with that, we hope that gets ahead of the onset for a freeze. And our two northern districts up in Cartersville and up in Gainesville are continually out now on patrol, seeing some spots develop. They're treating those now, and again at midnight, they will just continue their two shifts, so they will just never stop to continue treating the roads with the gravel salt mix. Governor, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Governor and General, you both said communication is key. Is tomorrow another big test for the new weather task force and the new recommendations that came out of it?
Well, I think it will be, tomorrow will be a day of implementation. We think, as you have heard from the preparations that have been made, and some of those preparations have already been implemented, as you heard from DOT, I think tomorrow will just be one of those days in which we will perhaps continue to implement with the brine, with the salt and the gravel applications to the roadways. But I think it does indicate that we are prepared, and Colonel, you might talk about your strike teams in that regard.
Thank you, Governor. Mark McDonough, Commissioner, Department of Public Safety. In November, you all know we held an exercise where we exercised a concept of strike teams. And essentially, we asked ourselves during the task force, what assets does the state already have? And so when you look at the patrol and our Motor Carrier Compliance Division, the Department of Natural Resources, the Georgia Forestry Commission, and then the National Guard, there's a lot of stuff that we already have with four-wheel drive trucks and chainsaws and chains and pull straps. And so we put them together in a team fashion. And during this incident, we've got 15 of those teams deployed, and we'll continue to deploy them as needed through tomorrow, so that if there is a hot spot or in an area where there's a problem, we'll put a strike team in that area, and we'll do our best to prevent problems. But if there is a problem, we can pull vehicles out of the roadway, or we can assist motorists, and then we can work directly with the DOT with their fire teams to get those folks there to get extra salt or gravel on the roadway. So that's what we've done with the strike teams, and I think it's a concept that'll prove itself.
Do you anticipate more of those strike teams in Metro Atlanta or around North Metro Atlanta tomorrow than there were this morning?
Well, the concept is specifically for Metro Atlanta. When you look at the number of interchanges, critical interchanges, that's the reason for those teams specifically. And we can flex to as high as 35 of those teams. But we thought for this incident and through tomorrow, 15 would be appropriate. And when you mention that, essentially you're talking about 50 to 60 additional state personnel from all of those agencies to assist in the overall effort.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you.